Hi, this is Fam Electric Ghost. This is Sex with Rollercoasters.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
Good, man. How about you?
Good. I'm just gonna do a little brief intro. This is the Fam Electric Ghost Show, and we interview indie artists from around the world. Today, we have Sex with Rollercoasters on, and we've been interviewing folks who are indie artists all around the world since 2017, and we're excited to have Sex with Rollercoasters on. So let's start
Yeah,
talking about what you do.
happy to be here.
So can you give your name and who you are in the band?
My name is Steve. I sing and play guitar.
I'm Dave. I play the drums.
Okay,
I'm Alex, so I play the bass and do some backup vocals.
okay,
Oh
that's awesome. So it's everybody that's talking tonight.
yeah. Well, this is it. We're a three-piece band.
That's cool. All right. So you guys got the questions I sent you, right?
I don't think we did.
Oh, okay. Well, I can walk through it. So
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
yeah. So when did you first get into music, and at what age? Each of you can kind of go through it.
Probably the same story for all of us. I think we all played in like the high school band.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, elementary school. I started playing music at like 11.
Yeah, I was probably like 12 or 13 or so.
I think I was about 13.
Yeah, like 12 average age.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just kind of went from there. We morphed into as like our interest grew into rock and roll and stuff. I started playing guitar. Alex started playing guitar, and then I think he switched to bass. And Dave's always played drums.
That's cool. So you've been working on music since you were like early teens.
Oh yeah. We've been playing music for a while.
So when did you actually become Sex with Rollercoasters, or maybe you want to talk about the evolution of how you got to be that name? I'm sure you had other bands before that, so maybe you want to talk about that.
Not too many, surprisingly. Me and Dave are brothers. We've been playing music since we started playing music. And we've obviously been in bands. Sex with Rollercoasters, we started in 2006. We had a different bassist at the time, and Alex joined us right around 2014, I think, when we recorded our second album. And we're currently working on our third.
That's cool. So when you put together records, how are you doing that? Are you doing like a home studio, or are you going into real production studios? Are you using like a digital audio workstation, or are you using, like?
Our first two we recorded at our friend's studio. It's not like a high end thing. It's just something he was running out of his house.
Yeah.
He had some pretty decent equipment. This new one we're trying to do 100% by ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
just as like a personal challenge type thing.
So like just for example, like I have a home studio and I use like a Zoom R16, R24s, and then I've got like Yamaha mixers and hardware synths, and I don't really use a DAW. So since you guys are guitarists, are you guys just using like a soundboard directly to digital tape, or are you going into Pro Tools or FL Studio, or you using a DAW, or how are you?
Yeah, we're using we're doing it digitally. We have like a Focusrite 2i2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of surprisingly my amps got USB capabilities, and we're using all different types of tricks and stuff.
Are you trying to mic the amps, or are you totally going USB?
We did both. We had a direct in, and then we also mic'd them, and then we're kind of using a blend of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of personally like the direct in for like the clean sound.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like super crisp, but I like the mic's better for distortion.
Yeah,
more room away.
Yeah, if you're using like a tube amp and you're trying to catch that feedback or that heavy power chords.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, mic in an amp kind of does that. You mic the drums and stuff too?
Yes.
Yeah, totally mic the drums. So are you using kind of like preamps and signal processors or different types of things?
Nah, we unfortunately don't have that kind of money.
yeah. Well, everybody always wants, that's the dream,
Yeah, sure.
to get like a Neve. I don't know if you guys know about Neve, like Neve board capabilities. There's a guy
I
named
don't know anything about that.
Robert Neve was the guy who built this awesome analog soundboard, and it was used for like Tom Petty, Damn the Torpedoes. The It was used for like Rumors from Fleetwood Mac.
Right on.
A lot of really awesome recordings. Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters actually went and found this Neve board sitting in a studio called Sound City, and there's a whole documentary about it.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so Rupert Neve is like it's kind of like Robert Moog or like the guys that created like the Gibson guitar. He was a genius when it comes to soundboards, and I guess he's making modules now that are more affordable that you can get pieces of that analog signal processing.
Right.
And it's really good for mics and guitars and drums and all kinds of cool stuff. Just something
right on.
pretty cool. But so what are your influences, and can people kind of hear your reference points? Maybe you could point them out, like in your music. Do you want to go into that or?
Sure. Yeah. We're very widely influenced. I'm personally more a fan of modern music, but I also like older stuff. I like stuff that's challenging to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I guess more popular things that I personally like would be like the Flaming Lips.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. I like that they're psychedelic, but they're also got like a pop
Mm-hmm.
tinge to them, and we kind of do that too. People tell us that we sound like all these different bands. I don't necessarily agree.
Mm-hmm.
But we got, you can hear like Weezer in our sound. But yeah, I don't know, tons of different stuff.
Yeah. So when you say challenging, would that mean like progressive rock or just psychedelic rock, or when you mean challenging, what do you mean?
I just like people personally. This is me personally. I know these guys listen to different stuff than me, but I like stuff that's like almost hard to listen to. I was a big fan of Bjork's latest record. That was crazy. But yeah, just stuff like that, stuff.
Okay, so would you think like Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground? Would you consider that something hard to listen to?
Well, he had that one record that was all like feedback. So
yeah.
That's a little too much for me, but I like the idea.
His classic crazy album was White Light, White Heat, and the whole thing is this fuzz tone for like 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a totally avant-garde, crazy record, And then, if you get real avant-garde, I don't know if you ever got into this. Big Star Third. I don't know if you ever heard of Big Star. Big Star was the band that had Alex Chilton, and Alex Chilton is like a real famous guitar player and singer from the late 60s, 70s. He was in a band called the Box Tops, and he's famous for the song called The Letter. He was a teen star. And then he decided he wanted to make an American version of the Beatles. And he created this band, but it was on Stax, and Stax was an R&B label, so he didn't know how to distribute it. And if you ever go check Rolling Stone or Spin Magazine, like Big Star did like 3 albums that are like 5-star albums in the 70s that went nowhere. They're kind of like a Velvet Underground. But they created like a power pop that was kind of Beatle-esque and kind of like Badfinger. So if you know about Badfinger, was like a clone to the Beatles that came from the Beatles themselves. But Big Star is an American band with a bunch of Southern rockers. They're trying to sound British. And Alex Chilton had this awesome voice, and there was this guy named Chris Bell who was this engineer that was like a George Martin. He was like a brilliant guitar player and engineer. And so if you listen to their records, there's one called the Number One Record and Radio City, and then their most famous record called Third. And Third is a lot like Neil Young's Tonight's the Night. It's kind of like this album that's falling apart. Like the band is breaking up, it's falling apart. It's very avant-garde. But it's very listenable because it actually kind of predates what you would call alternative music, right? So this kind of predates Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all these classic, like REM. It kind of created, and if you listen to guys like Peter Buck and Michael Stipe, Paul Westerberg, Bob Mould, they all cite Big Star as a big influence as an American rock band. So you might want to check them out.
Oh, cool. We'll have to check it out.
So your writing style and your genre, you would say was like alternative, or given that rock bands are kind of not not that as big as they used to be. So what would you say your genre is? Because it used to be like college radio, alternative, grunge, straight rock. What would you call what you do?
Yeah, I guess we would call it like alternative, or like the college rock of the mid-90s, like influenced, I guess. Like,
Yeah, like Replacements and Weezer and bands like that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so you talked about like recording at home or recording at your friend, like doing it. So when you record, are you recording like in a basement or a garage or like your bedroom, and like what? How?
This new album, we did a mix of all of it. We recorded it, like the drums like in our basement. A lot
Yeah.
of the guitars were like in our various bedrooms,
Mhm.
and we would just like put it all on a hard drive and pass it back and forth, kind of.
That's cool. Yeah, because I was wondering, because I've collaborated. It's so cool today. I collaborated. I live in New Hampshire, and I collaborated with this woman who is an actress in Los Angeles, and we did a whole record. We never even met each other, and we
That's
did it
awesome.
all by exchanging files on Google Drive. And I would take a file and dump it into my Zoom R24, and then run, you know, digital effects on it or all kinds of processing, or run it through my Moog. And
Right on.
I'm a big like analog guy because I got all these like Euro racks and Moogs and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so when you think about doing your music, have you thought about introducing like Euro racks or sampling, or you guys are like or synths or any kind of electronic stuff into your music, or are you just like straight rock? You're not gonna do that kind of mixture of bringing things in.
When we play live, we usually just play with the rock and roll instruments, just because it's really hard to transport all that stuff to a lot of the places that we play.
Yeah.
But our recordings, we kind of just go ham with everything. We'll lay down the track with the rock and roll instruments, and then we'll put on all sorts of crazy effects. We'll do synthesizers, and we've even sampled like little audio clips and stuff.
Okay, so you're not opposed to like doing like not straight dead on like 4-piece rock band, like
No, not at
bass
all.
guitar. Don't you talking about? So when you use the synths, are you using like soft synths through like a digital audio workstation, or are you using like a real synth, like a Roland or a Moog or something?
A mixture of stuff. We've used everything from apps to like I have a micro Korg. We dumpster dove this weird piano that I don't know the name of. Yeah, just tons and tons of stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, because I think a lot of what you see today is like cross genre. Like you'll see hip hop artists actually have live bands.
Yeah.
With like real bass players and real guitarists and keyboardists, and then you see like rock bands will throw a DJ in, or they'll throw like an electronic musician in with a Euro rack and do all kinds of crazy sounds. So there's a lot of cross pollination. So have you guys thought about like collabing with like a digital artist or hip hop artist or a DJ? Have you ever thought about like doing some kind of weird collab like that?
We would love to. For this new record, we are asking a couple people to join us on the tracks. We just recorded a girl the other day who's going to be singing with us. But yeah, we're not opposed to anything at all.
Cool.
We're pretty freeform dudes.
Okay, so how many like guest slots are you gonna have like with different vocalists on like your next record?
Probably 3, I think, on a couple different tracks. Yeah, cool. I think 3.
That's cool. And so, like, if you talk about like your song, "The Longing and the Long Division."
Yeah, Longing and Long Division.
Yeah. So, can you kind of talk about like how that track came to be and like what's who's on it and what's going on with it?
Sure. That's just the 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of interesting. We when our old bassist quit, we were looking around for someone to join the band, and that's one of the first things that we kind of jammed when Alex came.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how that song kind of took its form. It really doesn't have too many words. It's a very jammy song, and it's sort of just like the same riff, just evolving over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're really trying to jam it out, and that's kind of how it came to be in its format, at least.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's a question I had with some people because, like, you know, when you talk to people when they write a song, there's all different ways that it comes. Like, do you guys typically, you know, do like a jam session and then pull a song out of a jam, or does one of you actually have the full structure like developed and then you guys like add on to it, or is it a combination of like, well, it could be all those things happening all the time?
Yeah, it's all those things. We like to jam before and after practice is just like a warm up type deal. And sometimes we'll have really cool ideas and we'll try to flesh them out. And other times I'll just be like in the shower or something, and I'll be like, all right, I have a song, and then I'll bring that to practice, and we'll try to turn it into something.
That's cool. So it's like, so as you guys are all guitar, bass player, drummers, right? So guitar, bass, drum, right? Or does everybody
Yeah,
play
yeah.
multiple? Do you guys play multiple instruments, or do you guys like single instrument guys?
Both me and Alex are pretty well versed in stuff. Dave plays the drums. He's pretty good at keyboards and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, we know our way around vaguely around other stuff.
That's cool. Because one of the things well, I'm a keyboardist, so
Right.
part of what I do is like, you know, when you're a keyboardist, you can kind of build the whole song, and when you have synth gear and, you know, recording gear, you can kind of like, I can build the bass line, I can do the drums, I can do all these things. And then I used to have a band, and I would just present like what I thought the bass line should be. But then if a real bass player is going to take that and kind of like do an end whistle on it or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
or do like, yeah, you know, like the guys in Zeppelin, like, you know, he's like John Paul Jones, like you know, Jimmy Page could write what he thinks the bass line could be, but John Paul Jones is going to really take it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So is that kind of what happens? Do you guys like influence each other's parts, or you kind of let like the guy who's on the bass decide that's what it should be?
I mean, sometimes, most of the time, it's just a guitar part, and I'll let them literally do whatever they think.
He's gonna go
with
whatever
they see fit, or Alex will come with like a cool bass riff, and you know, we'll work from there. We don't really like step into each other's territory too much.
That's cool. Not like a Pete Townsend. Have you heard stories about Pete Townsend where he'd write the whole song, including
right, yeah.
like the bass lines, everything. He'd do the vocals and then hand it to the band, and then he knew that Daltrey's going to do it different than him. You know, he knew absolutely he's going to take over, and the drums are going to get blown out by Moon. Moon's going to really blow it out, but it was kind of confining sometimes because he built the structure, and they kind of didn't let it go away from that structure. You know, he would let people interpret it, and they did change it, but he didn't like let jam sessions happen as much like later in the history of the Who, and it caused like a lot of fights. But based on the history I've read, but so do you guys get along good, right? Because two brothers and then another member. But I've heard, like, you know, Oasis was a band of brothers. You know, I mean, you guys do you guys get friction at all ever? I mean, some bands never want to talk about it, but do you guys ever?
No, not really, not at all. We're usually on the same page with pretty much everything. Even if we have a stupid idea, we're all pretty like, yeah, no, let's do that. And collectively learn not to do that again.
So what do you guys like thoughts on like the future of music and where things are going, like regarding rock? And I've heard a lot of bands, like I've talked to a lot of DJs and electronic musicians that always go and say, well, rock's dead. And I don't exactly believe that, because I think what happens, like commercial rock might be dead, but when you go on SoundCloud and you go on YouTube and you see all these, like there's tons of rock bands. It's just they're not getting the play they used to get, but there's a lot of rock bands out there, and the genre's not dead. It's just that it's not getting. I think bands that should be paid attention to are not being paid attention to, and that's the problem. And so, like young bands like yourself should be getting pushed more, but you know, people think it doesn't exist. What are your thoughts?
I mean, like I slightly agree. However, I think like everything has its time. Like I think more rock-based music will come back within time. And maybe like right now it's more electronic, but in 3 or 4 years, you know, it'll be back. You know, I think everything comes in cycles, because in the 80s, a lot of electronic music was popular again. Cycled back to more rock and roll based in the early 90s, and then I just think everything goes in cycles. So eventually, I think more rock-based music will be popular again.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like what's going on. Is like as an electronic musician, I'm excited because what happened like when grunge came, like Moog and Prophet, the big companies that made sense during the new wave, they died. They just totally died, and all you saw were like the Pearl Jam, Nirvana, you know, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots. They had this whole like grunge movement, and there was a rejection of like synths. Kind of just got pushed
Yeah.
down. Now, because of EDM and DJs and whatever, Moog, the company that invented the synthesizer came back to life. They're totally back to life. They're building all their synths again. Prophet that built the Prophet 5, which was real heavy in the new wave. Devo and all these big bands used it. They came back. Like all the big synth companies, like even Mellotron, that made these big synths that the Beatles used, came back. So it's weird that all these synth companies that went out of business actually are back and making sense even better than what was in the height of the new wave, which is kind of cool.
I think it's really cool that things go in waves like that.
Yeah, it's just cool to be able to. You don't have to go to an old pawn shop and find a Moog Model D. You can actually get a brand new Model D that like almost can be in some ways is good or better than the original from '72. So what's interesting is like that the technology has brought these things back, and they're actually very very interesting to use, and there's a lot of co-mingling with a lot of things. Like I listen to bands like Radiohead and Wilco that kind of mix electronic with guitar. And,
Sure.
And that's kind of like I've always been hoping that there more bands try to go that direction. That you see what Radiohead does and what Wilco does with electronic music.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of multi-genrealism happening right now. People are blending a lot of stuff. I think like there's that electronic alternative rock that's kind of going on.
Yeah, you get a lot of bands doing that. There's some really good bands that have gone that direction lately. Well, Nine Inch Nails came back with a record, and they're kind of like the archetype of that.
Right. Yeah.
Trent Reznor is like super well known for kind of pulling out the Moog and making it sound like a guitar. Making
Right.
synth. I've always been very interested in guys that try to make synths not just sound happy or background, but push them to the front and make them very aggressive.
Sure.
So that they can actually stand with like a punk band or an alternative band. If you think about it, not just be a background instrument. But
right.
The kind of way I like to look at it. But so what do you guys think about streaming services versus back in the day where you'd actually get people to buy a CD? But now you get your stuff on Spotify, but you only get paid like 0.006 of a penny for a stream. Versus back in the day, you do a CD, people would actually buy the CD. The only thing I see today is maybe vinyl. Like if you do vinyl, if you have diehard fans, people will actually buy vinyl.
Sure.
But CDs are kind of like up in the air whether or not somebody's actually going to buy
it. Right. Yeah. We still make CDs. I think people really like, especially when they come see us and play shows or whatever. They really like having that sort of physical thing to hold.
Okay.
When they're listening to music. I personally like that music is the streaming services or whatever because it makes you accessible to people that normally wouldn't. Yeah. My only real issue is that because of that, it's so hard to get people to listen to things that they don't normally do because I feel like they're just kind of going back to the same artists over and over again just because of how like flooded these streaming services are with content.
Yeah, the one thing I think about the streaming services is because I'm a child of the 70s, right? And I'm an album-oriented guy.
Sure.
Right? And I think what happens with the streaming services is a lot of listeners, like modern listeners, don't seem to be used to listening to a full record as a concept.
Right, absolutely.
And like a lot of rock music and progressive synth music, like bands like Yes, bands like Styx, bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Genesis. Those guys built albums that you're supposed to listen to the whole thing, right? But if you have a generation that all you listen to is a playlist that just has the top 10, then you never get into the intricacies of a song that's not supposed to be a top 10 song. It's
Right.
part of an album. It's part of a story. And so
Yeah.
if you kind of reject being able to let artists do a story, then all you get are people trying to make hits, which gets boring. I think. I think, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. We take a lot of time to like pick the order of the songs on our albums, and we try to like transition all the songs into each other and sort of make it an experience. But also we try to juggle the fact that you might be listening to a song at random.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to kind
So,
of deal
like,
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to like tread that middle ground a little bit.
Yeah, because like if you build an album, like you do have like it seems like in hip hop people are like listen to like Butterfly from Kendrick Lamar. They'll listen to the whole thing.
Sure.
So there are some
Right.
cases where if you build a concept that's strong, you will get people to listen to the whole thing all the way through. It just seems like there is this whole kind of atmosphere of just doing singles, kind of like the 1950s. Like a lot of what's
Right.
going on with Spotify is like, kind of like in the 50s, like there weren't really albums. I mean, the albums came out, but they weren't that great. They weren't that strong. I mean, a lot of cases they were built around a bunch of singles, and then they got thrown together, and they didn't really have a concept. And then we start getting bands like the Beatles actually define that, and then you start getting bands that really decide, okay, we're going to make an album that actually means
Right.
something. And I see a lot of bands still do it. It's just there. It's cool that what I've seen, what you said is like if you do a show and your fans come to the show, they like seeing the merch as your CD and T-shirts and stuff like that. Then that's where you can sell the CDs,
Right.
that or the vinyl. That's where that works. So it's kind of at a micro level compared to what it would have been with a label putting out like 100,000 copies.
Right.
You're bringing like 1,000 copies or 100 copies or 200 copies at a micro level compared
Right.
to the way the industry used to be in the 70s where you had to flood the stores with it, and have distribution through the record label is the only way you could really get out there. So I think that's the advantage now that everybody kind of can get out there without a label. So what do you think about that? I mean, like, would you want to be on a label? Do you want to be indie? Or do you have an opinion about like what would you want a label to do for you and stuff like that?
We don't really have strong opinions. We've always just kind of done stuff by ourselves. We never really looked towards getting a label for anything. We produce all of our records on our own. We do all of our own advertising, our own booking, our own, literally everything.
Yeah, well, a lot of bands, Pearl Jam went off the label. Radiohead went off the label, and like Wilco went off their label. So it's
Absolutely.
like it's because the labels weren't really doing anything other than giving you like loans, and then telling you that they're not going to give you any more money until you earn it back.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, even the bigger bands start saying, "Well, I'm not playing that game anymore," and so they're controlling their own destiny. They're doing their own booking, kind of like all the low indie bands are doing. The big bands are doing.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's just like if you get a hit and you're indie, you don't have to sell 1 million records getting 10 cents a record because you get a higher profit at a lower amount of volume.
Absolutely.
So a lot of bands have figured out like, well, if I could sell 100,000 or 50,000 or 30,000, I don't need a label. I can make a lot of money at that level. If they hit that, so that's what a lot of people don't realize. Like you can actually do pretty well hitting under 50,000 records, as an indie band, if you work it out right. So that's what.
And I think there's an advantage as an indie band that you can sort of make those things like on demand rather than have like 2,000 albums that are sitting on shelves. You can make 200 for 200 people that want to buy that album. And if the more people come, then you can order.
You can ramp up. Yeah, you can ramp, but you don't have to have that supply. But what I'm saying is I've seen indie bands, like Sun Kill Moon is like an indie guy, right? He maybe hits 30,000-40,000 a year of a total sale. But he tours the world and he can make a living. He doesn't have to hit. So like if you live on that kind of level, you can be an active artist making money without, the label would tell you they would drop you. Because you wouldn't be able to stay on the label, they would kick you off. And so that's cool that people were able to keep on going in this new world where you don't have to prove to the A&R guys you're going to hit 500,000 records. Well, maybe one time you'll do that. And then
Yeah.
usually that's what happens. Like one time you hit that big number and then you never hit it again. It's very rare.
Right.
And so if the record company, then they just drop people, instead of building an audience like the Grateful Dead, like the way the Dead did it, they built an audience and they just toured real heavy. And then the people just went to see them,
Absolutely.
And I mean, the Pearl Jam kind of operates like that. And so I think a lot of indie bands that's their model. Like you find your fan base, you go to where you do what they want, they kind of like you. You find that kind of sweet spot, and you just keep on going. But what do you guys think about like the future of where you're going to go with the band? Have you got like ideas to tour and do other things?
We don't. Yeah, we would like, as soon as we're done this record, which we should have out in the late fall-ish area, hopefully, barring that nothing explodes. We'd like to start playing shows. We're gonna play a ton around our area. We're local to Philadelphia, and hopefully, all up and down the East Coast at least. We'll see where we go from there.
So, do you guys use the services that are out there for booking, or you found ways to book without using those services that I can mention or not mention?
No, yeah. We do it mostly ourselves. A lot of times with the out of town shows and stuff, like we'll find other like-minded artists on like maybe like Instagram or Facebook or even Spotify or something, and then we'll link up with them and be like, oh, like we'll host a show with you guys in Philadelphia, and you hook us up with a show in your town or whatever, and we'll just like trade that way. Both of us benefit, and then you can build relationships that way and share, fans and things like that.
So as a rock band, do you guys have your own backline? I mean, do you guys bring up your own amps and stuff, or do you use this like the actual venue amp systems?
It varies. We have all of our stuff. We kind of like prefer to use our stuff, but a lot of times we'll play like basements and like little college clubs and things like that where there's not enough room to have 3 or 4 drum sets. So a lot of times the venue will like kind of be like, oh, you have to use our stuff. Kind of there's just not enough room to store all the gear.
Mm-hmm. But for amps and stuff, you bring your own amps and your own sound stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of our sound comes from like our pedal boards and stuff like that.
That's cool.
So we have like everything pretty much pre-programmed on our pedals and stuff.
You bring your own mics like when you're singing, or do you depend on the house mics?
We usually just use the house mics because we don't have anything too special, but we have all of our own stuff. But that's for the most part, we use the house mics.
Yeah, that's cool. So I mean, what I've run into is like there's so many bands. Well, because you guys are a rock band, they at least understand that you've got equipment.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're an electronic band, everybody assumes you can just do it on a laptop, right? and I'm a keyboardist, so I have road cases with synths.
Yeah.
they're not, and then people think I can just come in with a laptop and like, no, I'm actually playing keyboards. So I actually have almost as much equipment as a 4-piece band. It takes like a U-Haul to bring it in because I've got all this stuff, and I've got road cases and everything for it. And I've had like clubs get confused thinking like, whoa, how much time do you need to set up? Like, well, like 20 minutes. And it's like, why? Because it's not just a laptop.
Yeah.
It's just like setting up, because I'm a one-man band, but I have a bass signal, I have drum signals, and they're all coming from machines. They're not coming from like laptops. They're coming from Moog, they're coming from Roland, they're coming from Prophets. So these things are all stacked up, and I control them with pedals and all kinds of devices and sequencers and stuff. And it's not all, it's not coming from some laptop. I go on and on, but like I get places that are like, oh, can you just get everything off stage in like 5 minutes? Like, no.
Yeah. Especially with only one person too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring a roadie. But even with a roadie, man, I got to put the stuff back in the cases. It's like, because there's so many people who can just come up with a Pioneer DJ system and just throw it on a table, and then they can take it off the table, and it's like easy
Yeah.
to move that compared to setting up a Moog and a Roland and a Yamahas and mixers and sequencers and samplers. Like it's not what you would think. I'm setting up kind of like what you'd see back in the day, what Genesis or Styx or any of those guys would have. Because I'm kind of an old school guy. I want to bring that to people, what that used to be. And people don't realize I'm a big proponent. Like synths can be very aggressive, kind of like what Trent does. Trent Reznor, I think, is a good example. The Nine Inch Nails, to go, if you see their show, they got a lot of stuff on the stage. So that's the kind of idea that I'm going with. So it's kind of like similar to a rock band. And I've always tried to explain to people, and like, they don't always get it because they get confused.
Yeah.
With the way DJs are today, they think everything like electronic is a DJ. And that's kind of like not do a good service to if you're an electronic musician. There's a little bit of a difference. So do you guys have like videos on YouTube that maybe you can send me links if you've got stuff like up when we put this podcast out?
Yeah. We have like 3 or 4 or 5 or something.
Maybe send me the links of just send me the links of the ones you want to push that go with this, because I have a blogger page where I'll push this out. And today, my podcast now is available on Spotify.
Awesome.
So Family Electric Ghost, when we push this out, it will be on Spotify.
Awesome.
So it's on multiple, like Anchor publishes this on their platform. And on their platform, they allow you to include songs from Spotify or Apple Music. So I can actually include like Longing and Long Division, Who the Hell is Nicholas McKay, Why Can't I Fly, or Love Stain, or Melodramaton, or I can
Melodramaton,
I can include those as part of this podcast. One thing is though, the Anchor exclusive version allows those songs to be segments.
Sure.
When it goes out to the other platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, sometimes those segments don't stay there because they're like publishing rights and stuff.
Right.
For some reason, which I don't know. But hopefully Spotify, they would stay there. I don't know. It was the first time we've tried it. We would think that those links would still remain there, but it's cool that this goes out, and I'll give you the link, and I can give you an embed link as well, so you can actually put this on any website you run.
Definitely.
So it's interesting to be able to talk to a rock band, because I think the last rock band I talked to was early this year. The 2 punk rockers from London.
All right.
Muted. They're 2 brothers. They kind of sound like Green Day. They have a Green Day kind of Sex Pistols vibe.
Sure.
And that was pretty cool. And they got the British heavy accent. Yeah, they were pretty cool. So you're only the second rock band I've talked to.
Well, right on.
That's cool. I'm always I get a lot of DJs. I get a lot of EDM. I get a lot of women pop singers that want to push their stuff, and that's cool. But I'm a big rock fan, so I like hearing, talking to bands. Rock bands have a lot in common with what I actually do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what's kind of cool, to talk to guys who actually still play instruments.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rare thing today, because do you find that people, some of your people in your generation, do they get the fact that you guys are musicians, or what do they think about you guys playing guitar compared to like the people who do rap and stuff? Do they have opinions because the way kids are today?
Where we're local too, it's kind of like you're either a some sort of artist or you're not. There's a large group of people that literally don't do anything, and you have to convince them to come out and check you out or whatever. But a lot of people even people in the rap scene often double in bands and stuff. The music out here is pretty intermingled.
Intermingled, that's cool.
Yeah,
because I've heard a lot of kids that they lost the ability, at least where I'm coming from, in this part of the Northeast, where they kind of lost the ability to play instruments. and they spend a lot of time in FL Studio or Pro Tools, and they're good at what they do. You can
Right.
be a musician using those tools, but
Yeah.
I still like to see a guy playing a bass or guy playing a real drum or like playing a Moog or a Hammond organ, because there's something about like if you go on stage and you're actually playing notes on a physical instrument,
Yeah.
that yeah, a DJ can do some cool stuff and a rapper can do some cool stuff with the, like an MPC or something, but there's nothing like seeing a real band, you know, to me. That at the end of the day, that's a musician playing an instrument,
Yeah.
and there's a difference. And I think there's always going to be people that want to do that, and it's cool to see you guys are still carrying that tradition. That's cool.
Sure.
That's awesome. Just keep on doing it. Keep on rocking in the free world if you know.
We'll try.
But yeah, so I'm gonna push this out. I will let you guys know when it's available.
Okay.
And do you guys have anything you want to tell your fans about anything you're doing in that they would be interested in?
Well, we have a show coming up this Saturday that you can check us out on our Facebook, on our Instagram, all that stuff. And just stay tuned for our record. We're still working on it. It'll be out, I promise. I know we've been taking forever. But,
Okay, like I what I always do is like if you have when your record comes out, if you want to have a release conversation where we talk in detail about your release and all the details of the whole album. If you want to do that, I'm open to that. If you guys want to push that out,
yeah, sure, we
now
could
that
totally
we're
do
on,
something.
yeah, now that we're on Spotify, that might be useful.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, cool. So I look forward to how long do you think that's going to be when you have this new record? Is it a couple months or a month or two?
Yeah, we're hoping the end of I don't know, November maybe. It should be definitely out by the end of the year.
End of the year, cool. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys when you have your new release, and just let me know. Send me a little note on Instagram.
Absolutely.
And we can do this again. Thank you.
All right, man.
Well, everybody, this was Sex with Rollercoasters, Bam Electric Ghost, and support Sex with Rollercoasters on all the streaming services. And if you see them in the show, buy their record,
Yeah, thanks.
buy their merch, watch their videos, like their videos, subscribe to their channels.
Yes.
Artists need support. So
yes,
that's what you need to do. If you like this band, show them that you like them. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, bye.